Hardcore mode, once considered the pinnacle of Path of Exile, saw a decrease in popularity with the inclusion of Arch Nemesis. The increased danger from these super buffed rares made every map dangerous even to the most prepared players, and had some of the most seasoned hardcore veterans fleeing to the safety of a more death-friendly environment in the softcore leagues. Now that Arch Nemesis has had its mods separated and removed, it's become palatable once again to risk many hours of your time to seek the adrenaline rush of near death and mounting achievements in hardcore. In this video, I'm going to go over my experience in the Gauntlet, my first hardcore league in years, in which I was able to get my first character to level 87 with absolutely no armor, and my second character to level 88, making this my personal best and second best hardcore runs of all time, despite using an oddball defensive setup on a character build I'd never tested before in what was arguably the hardest league that Path of Exile has to offer. I'll go over the mistakes that caused my deaths and what you can do to avoid them if you decide to try out these builds for yourself. Hello Exiles, this is Ryan from Behind Eyes Gaming, and this is my first character, already dead BEG, the Poisonous Concoction Trickster. This character was designed in a way that made it very difficult to hit at all with attacks, and it's also insanely durable against spells. The character makes use of the Keystone's Ghost Dance, Versatile Combatant, and Wind Dancer, which when combined with high evasion and a nice combined health and DS pool set up a pretty crazy defensive core for a character running no armor at all. It also has capped spell suppression with a very high amount of it suppressed, along with decently high spell block and block. With a whopping 66% of spell damage suppressed, combined with a 42% spell block chance, it makes spell damage taken on average less than 20%. On top of this, I've anointed Instinct, which recovers energy shield when suppressing spells, making most smaller spell hits do almost nothing at all. Basically, I'm only hit every 70th attack or so, and when it happens, there's a 50% chance of blocking it. Even if I successfully blocked it, the block would count as a hit, which would give me 10% more chance to evade, meaning I wouldn't get hit for another 77 attacks, and either way I would recover energy shield equal to 3% of my evasion, which is most of my energy shield. When I finally get hit properly by an attack, I'll take at least 20% less damage because of Wind Dancer. Polymath supplies the build with a huge amount of sustain and damage, giving 12% recovery of life, ES, and mana per kill, along with 36% global more damage, making this Ascendancy node everything Berserker's Aspect of Carnage wished it could be. Our damaging skill is Poisonous Concoction, which has a ton of base damage and is mechanically insane due to having AoE overlap, allowing for many poisons per hit. Having such a far-flung skill tree means that having a skill that can do damage even without a ton of damage nodes on the tree is essential. Also of note is that Poisonous Concoction is one of the least gear-dependent skills in the game. I was worried about sustaining my flasks without being a Pathfinder, but found that Soul of Rislatho with 2 life flasks is enough to easily be capped nearly all of the time, especially considering the build has so much sustain that it rarely needs to actually use the life flasks, keeping the life flask charge regen chugging away. In this build I do take replenishing remedies, but with later testing I found it unnecessary or as an option if I did want to just run 1 life flask, which may be the way to go with this. The links for Poisonous Concoction I have on my 5 link are Greater Volley, GMP, Void Manipulation, and Unbound Ailments. Greater Volley and GMP are super efficient because their reduction in damage only applies to the hit and not to the damage over time. This means that with the overlap, they provide hundreds of % more damage. For reference, 2 average support gems would provide a skill about 80% more damage, so this is insane. The required AoE scaling needed to get all 9 to overlap on average sized enemy is 34% according to the wiki. You get 10% of that just from the quality, but can get more from betrayal crafts and such. Larger enemies don't require any additional AoE to hit with all of the projectile explosions though, and honestly, applying 6 or 7 poisons without any additional investment still makes the projectile skill gems worthwhile, and in fact still much better than pretty much any other supports. The auras I ran on this version of the character were Grace, Precision, Discipline, and Herald of Agony, with plans to later drop Discipline and Herald of Agony when I had sufficient gear to reach higher amounts of Energy Shield and get the extra poison chance needed to replace them with Malevolence for more damage. I used Shield Charge for mobility and Frost Blink for an emergency escape. I also used Withering Step to apply Wither stacks, however since this shares cooldowns with Frost Blink, I had to be careful when I used it. I self-cast Temporal Chains to prolong my poisons by 40%, and also used Plague Bearer to help with clear as well as add some more single target damage. Both are linked with increased AoE support to help with aiming. This character did have a major weakness that eventually ended my first run. Wind Dancer, which provides powerful benefits, also has major drawback in that you take 20% more damage with attacks if you've been hit by an attack recently. This is pretty much never a problem, but there's certain enemies where it is and certain circumstances where it is, and one of those is enemies with Resolute Technique. If you've seen my Mayhem Frostblades Trickster videos, you'll know that I was afraid of a rogue exile named Xandro Blooddrinker when I was taking Wind Dancer. That exile does have Resolute Technique, and in this playthrough I avoided exiles like the Plague, and Xandro was not actually the one who ended up killing me. I ended up dying to the Deadly Blade Dancer in Sanctum. While Deadly Blade Dancer does not have Resolute Technique listed when I searched him up on PoEDB, he somehow managed to hit me twice in a very short period of time. I let my guard down and didn't use my life flask or log out, thinking that he couldn't possibly hit me again, but somehow I was immediately hit again and did end up dying. I'm not sure if some sort of debuff got me that lowered my evasion or what exactly happened, but he did end up killing me from hitting me twice. Unfortunately, Deadly Blade Dancer was how this character ended. But I wasn't done yet. I was determined to shore up my defenses and try a more physically bulky version of the build, bringing me to my next character of the Gauntlet, Revived BEG. With this version of the character, I decided to drop Wind Dancer. While it's very powerful, it does add a vulnerability, and I was going to be getting all the non-ES ascendancies this time, including Heartstopper, to make up for it. This also means adding a means to generate frenzy charges, which would drastically improve the damage. This build would only have 56% of spell damage suppressed, but would also be running Determination to give some physical durability along with Defiance Banner, with the goal of stacking some additional max resists, a bit on the tree, and eventually some on my body armor via Eldritch Influence and Shield if I could manage it, to make taking physical as additional elemental mods a little bit more manageable. Sadly, I do end up dying to exactly that before I can finish up my defenses, but that was very much because I decided to spec into Expedition on my Atlas tree, which was not the safest idea when my goal was simply to hit level 90 and not necessarily to get to the end game, have that crafted gear, and take on the big bosses of the game. I managed to get a 6 link this time and went with Vicious Projectiles as my last link. The other major differences were a cast on damage taken Molten Shell setup with increased duration and a mark on hit Poacher's Mark setup linked with Life Tap to get life and mana gain on hit, as well as to help generate frenzy charges with the Frenzy on Hit mastery for marks. Each projectile has its own chance to generate frenzy charges with this, so I was able to get my frenzies up extremely quickly. Finally, I took Flame Dash over Frost Blink. While not being instant, it was fast enough, and the extra charges made it so I wasn't in danger using Withering Step for DPS. The tree was even more far-flung as I had to path the Champion of the Cause and Soul of Steel and the Determination Reservation Mastery to fit everything, but that gave me more max resist, so it was well worth it and part of the plan. This time I used only the Soul of Rislatha Pantheon to sustain my flasks, and with 2 life flasks I had no problem even with no flask nodes at all. My death came at level 88, just as I was entering red maps. An expedition pack spawned a physical aura rare when I had physical as extra elemental damage mods rolled on the map, and one attack got me and put me from full to 0, right before the stage where I was about to start farming Eldritch currency to increase my max resist to remedy just this kind of situation. And that was the end of my Gauntlet run. but I managed to do better than I ever have in hardcore mode in any kind of league, and it inspired me to play it a bit more. I'm currently playing an even more refined version of the build on Hardcore Solo Self-Bound Sanctum, and I'll release a full guide for league starts soon, as I believe it's an extremely underrated build. Both of the POVs will be in the description. Feel free to like the video if you found this useful or interesting, and to dislike it if not. This has been Ryan from Behind Eyes Gaming, and I will see you next time. Bye!